Welcome, everyone, to We the People's Forum. I'm David Lapp, a co-founder of Braver Angels and the director of the Working People's Project at Braver Angels. So We the People's Forum is a Braver Angels event where everyday Americans get time at the podium. And our forum tonight is When Polarization Comes for the Janitor, featuring our featured speaker is Mark Patenaude, who worked for 21 years as an employee at Smith College, including several years as a janitor. And he resigned after a student falsely accused him of racism. And part of the story was told in the New York Times 2021 article, Inside a Battle Over Race, Class, and Power at Smith College, which you can find online. And this is his first full-length public interview. So we're very honored that, Mark, you would join us for this. So the purpose of We the People's Forum is to hear from everyday Americans, like a janitor, on the issues of the day. And so obviously our speaker tonight, Mark, has his own specific story to share, but we'll also touch on some bigger issues of class and privilege and how blue collar people are affected by polarization and what we can learn from Mark's experience. And so so that's what we're very glad that you're here, Mark. So Mark, welcome to We the People's Forum.
Well, thank you very much.
And let us just, I'm going to ask everyone to just mute themselves before we get started here. So let's see here. I'm going to just, let's see. All right, very good. I think that did it. Great. So Mark, I'm going to begin this just in case some people are not familiar with kind of the backstory here, the New York Times story. I'm going to just very briefly just share from that New York Times story the basic timeline of how you were involved in this and why we're talking to you.
Absolutely.
So in the summer of 2018, Omu Canute, a Black student, is eating lunch in a dorm lounge. According to New York Times, student workers were not supposed to use the Tyler cafeteria, which was reserved for a summer camp program for teenagers. Jackie Blair, a veteran cafeteria employee, mentioned that to Miss Canute when she saw her getting lunch there, but then decided to drop it. So a janitor, another janitor, not Mark, another janitor sees someone in the closed area and calls security about it, and the security guard approaches Miss Canute about it. Miss Canute writes a Facebook post that night about the incident, accusing the people involved of discrimination and saying it was a part of a pattern of harassment. The college president saw the Facebook post and offered profuse apologies and put the janitor on paid leave. And news outlets, including New York Times and Washington Post, picked up the story as the case of a female student harassed by white workers. Later on, Smith College would hire a law firm to investigate the matter. They found no persuasive evidence of bias. Now, 3 weeks after this incident, Ms. Canute posted on Facebook the photograph, name, and email of Jackie Blair, who was the cafeteria worker there, and also of Mark Patenaude, saying that they were accusing them of being racist, responsible for the incident. However, Mark Patenaude was not there at the time the incident happened. His shift had ended earlier in the day. So, Mark, you can correct anything about this timeline if we missed anything there.
Okay, yeah.
Is that a basic? You want to just say anything? Is that the basic timeline of the event?
Pretty much, yes. But the actual incident took place July 31st. And I wasn't called out till the end of August, which I believe you said. So other than that, it's right on.
Okay. So before we go into kind of the circumstances surrounding that and how it affected you, Mark, I would love to just hear a little bit more about you and your background, who you are. Maybe you could start with telling us about where you grew up and a little bit about your family growing up.
Sure. Where should I start? Well, I grew up in Northampton, the Florence section of Northampton, Mass. Great family, great neighborhood. I have two brothers and a sister. Stay-at-home mom, so it was your typical family. Dad went to work, mom stayed home. Very stable. Love my town. I did. Dad was a banker. He was also involved in politics. So, yeah, so he was a good man, but he passed early. I think all the stresses back then of that might have had something to do with that. So we lost him quite early.
Was he a mayor or city council? How was he involved in
No, he was
politics?
city council president.
Mhm.
He played mayor for a month, I think. Um, yeah, so, you know, we were a normal family. When I graduated Hamp High, I went to the Air Force, served there, came home. We opened a family business for 10 years in the heart of Northampton. But like everything else with times and insurance and everything, it kind of priced us out of the business. So after that, I worked for the VA in the lead section of town for 7 years, and then moved on to Smith after that.
And when
Earlier though, I was married. I did get married young. I have two boys. Obviously, that marriage clearly didn't work out. But I got remarried in 2010 to the very person I should have been married to the first time. We knew it from the beginning, and we've been a great match since. And I have to shout out to her that I love her, and she has helped me an awful lot through all this. So
that's wonderful.
yeah.
And so how did you become an employee at Smith College? And when you first started working at Smith College, what were you working there?
Well, I was doing the same thing, maintenance. That's what I was hired at the time. I worked briefly in the garden department, but mostly it's been maintenance. And it was, back then, it was a joy. It was almost a celebration to get in there, because I knew I'd be working there until retirement, and it's one stressor in life I didn't have to worry about.
Was it a union job, Mark?
It was a union job, yeah. So.
And was that a good experience for you, or not necessarily, or neutral?
For the most part. I mean, I didn't get into union stuff too much, so, you know, but that was me. I just keep low profile.
Yeah.
Work my time, go home.
So you were thrilled to get the job because it meant
Yeah.
stability for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and all around stability, a paycheck, healthcare, retirement, you know.
So what was that like? I mean, you know, at least until the time of the incident, I mean, 21 years is a long time, but what was that like working for you there at Smith College over the course of that time?
It was awesome. It was awesome. The first 10 years, awesome. And slowly you could start seeing things deteriorate. And it got harder each day to go to work. I see there's a few Smith and ex-Smith employees on here, so they can relate to what I'm saying. But yeah, it was easy enough to avoid. You just went to work, did your job.
How did you, when you say that after about 10 years, you started seeing it slowly deteriorate, give us some insight into what you saw and experienced with it deteriorating.
Well, I think it was deteriorating for employees, for staff. The way management was going wasn't in a very good direction. And it just, to me, things got a little stressful for staff.
Could you say what year that
Oh,
was
sorry.
about?
I'm sorry.
Could
and
you say
Liz,
what year that was?
So that was probably 2008.
Thank you.
and just one word of process, Liz, I appreciate, it's okay, but we do want to, just in order to be fair to everyone, we do want to save the question time. So right now I'll do up until about, for the next 25 or so minutes, I'll do this quite moderated conversation with Mark, and then we'll open it up for further questions. And for people who have direct experience, you're a blue collar worker or identify as working class and you have direct experience of this, invite you to share your own experience. But yes, thank you for clarifying that about the timeline. So Mark, so it was a good experience, slow to start deteriorating. So let's fast forward then to the incident that got national news attention. How did you first find out about the incident with Miss Canute and her accusing the workers of discrimination?
Rumor mill. That's how I found out.
Mhm.
I can't tell you exactly when it was, as far as when the incident happened.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was a couple days or a week after or what, but yeah, it was a rumor mill.
Did it get your attention? Did it seem out of the ordinary, or did it just seem like, oh, this is just kind of this has happened before and didn't seem that extraordinary to you?
It got our attention because we were able to figure out who the employee that was put on leave was. We knew it wasn't good for him, because there's been situations there before where people have just been accused of things and let go. So we didn't think it was good for him.
Mm. I imagine it might have made you a little bit fearful. Like, what's
Fearful? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, walking on glass. I mean, you know, that's the whole culture that they started creating back in, say, 08 or 09. It just made for employees not to have a voice, and you just, if you did, you were shunned because of that. And if you said the wrong thing, like, or did the wrong thing, you were not necessarily, it was wrong, but they took it as wrong and you were gotten rid of.
Ah, is there another example that comes to mind, or along the lines that you're talking about, of someone speaking up or saying something and then got rid of?
Nothing I want to really get into.
Sure.
I don't know, the officer that was involved in this was let go. This was rumor, but he was let go after this incident. I'm not sure why. I've not been in contact with anyone at Smith. So again, it's all hearsay and rumor to me.
So then 3 weeks after the incident, if I have my timing right there, Miss Canute, the student, writes a Facebook post identifying you and Jackie Blair, the cafeteria worker, as the racist.
Yes.
And so take us back to the moment when you first learned about that Facebook post. And where were you, and what was your immediate response?
Well, I was in the library building that I worked in, and it was early in the morning. We worked the 5 to 1 shift. And I got a call from my director, which is unusual, wanted to come up and see me. You know, it was unusual, but didn't worry me so much. until she came up and told me what was going on. And even then, it was kind of, maybe I was in shock, but it didn't seem to really hit me that hard. And we talked for a bit. She left. She did say one thing that struck me. If I hear from anybody, to let her know. So, you know, in my head, the whole cover-up thing was coming along. And just out of curiosity after that, the union came up and it spoke to me too, to let me know what was going on. And they actually showed me copies of the Facebook page. But after I talked to them, it just struck me strange that my director would say something like that. So I checked my email, and there was an email already on there from the Boston Globe wanting comment. And when I called my director, and I forwarded the email to her. I was told, don't speak, don't talk to anyone. If anybody contacts you, send it right up to certain person at College Hall, and they'll take care of it. That didn't sit well with me.
Not at all. Why was that? Say more about that.
I just, it's one of those situations, it's hard to explain. You just knew, I knew then that I was in a bad place. Honestly, when I went home that day, the more I thought about it, the more I got scared. The more I suffer from bad anxiety from other incidences in life before Smith. And when this happened, that just went through the roof. It was out of control. And yeah, so I took a few weeks off, and nothing got better. Nothing got better. And tried to deal with Smith on how to get through this, and there was no help at all. At one point, I ran out of vacation and sick time, and it took me to get a lawyer to get them to let me use the sick bank. And after my time on that was gone, there was no paycheck.
So wait, you're saying you had to get a lawyer involved in order to get more paid sick time?
Yes. Yeah. And when I found out it was going to run out, for years I've worked with a bad back that doctors have told me to retire from, but that's not me. That's not me. So I never did. I thought I could work, get through life until retirement, and that'll be the story. But the fact that there was no paycheck going to be coming in, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my family. So since I have been on disability, which is something I don't like, I'm not proud of, but you know, at that point, I had no choice. Since then, obviously, my back has gotten worse. So working is not an option. Do I blame that on Smith? Yes and no. I mean, it was my decision, but their lack of communicating and help and support really threw me in that direction.
Yeah. Did the president of the college or any other college leadership, union leadership, contact you to express,
well, they did,
or something about their solidarity with you?
They a few did, but in the end said, if anybody gets in touch with you, don't talk.
Oh,
It
if
was
anyone from
all
college leadership.
keep you, yeah, it was all a keep you quiet thing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have a lawyer at this point who was, had you hired a lawyer for this specifically?
I did, and we went for years. The first couple of years, we went through, I don't know how many meetings with her, and she really told me in the beginning I didn't have a case,
Hmm.
but she would support me and do what she could.
Mhm.
She got me those couple extra weeks of pay in the beginning, but in the end, at the beginning of this year, ultimately there was no way of getting anything from Smith.
Mhm.
And there was no support. They wouldn't even talk to her.
Oh, to the lawyer.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Mhm. Now you said
And
something interesting. In fact, Mark, you said something interesting to the New York Times reporter, which is you said, I don't know if I believe in white privilege. I believe in money privilege. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that.
classism. Smith is full of classism. They claim they're not, but they are. Um, the students that come in are from wealthy families. Not all of them, most of them. And they use it. They use it to their advantage. And yeah,
Hmm. How would you define classism? Or I guess give us a sense for what it's like, what the experience of being on the other end of a classism is like.
the classism I ran into there is they were up here and I was way down the bottom.
Hmm.
That's all I was. And the thing is, in the end, it doesn't matter what I had to say because there's 350, 400 other people out there waiting for my job.
Hmm.
So, you know, there was a feeling of I don't matter. And when I first started working at Smith, I really thought that I did.
Hmm.
And in the end, I didn't.
Hmm. That's interesting. When you
It,
first started working at Smith, you felt valued, you felt that you
yeah,
mattered, you felt a
yeah,
valuable part of the college community.
absolutely.
How, so I guess, I mean, the incident that you're talking about is kind of the climax of this, but what were some things when you felt valued and a vital part of the college community? How was that? What did that feel? How was that expressed to you?
I don't know if there was anything specific. You just had the feeling that you were included. You were a part of the college, part of the team. Um, and at the end, I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have that anymore because again, you knew that they didn't care. There was 300 and some odd people waiting to get in there. My job didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't matter. That's the sense you got from management.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting how you said you got the sense that other people were up here and you were down here. And I
Yeah,
imagine that's expressed subtly, not necessarily always very explicitly or overtly, maybe
correct.
sometimes, but it's something in subtle ways gets communicated.
Right. We didn't want to be heard from. They want us quietly come into our job, do your job, but don't be seen. And at the end of the day, go home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which towards the end of all this, that was fine by me. That's all I was trying to do. But that's part of the culture that they were bringing into the college.
Could you say something about, so you felt this strongly, this kind of disrespect for blue collar workers, working class people in general. So let's broaden the horizon a little bit. Let's talk about in American society overall today. From your observation, do you think that blue collar people are generally respected in society today?
Boy, that's a tough question. I don't know how to answer that. I feel like I felt when I was at Smith that you're valued only when they need you to be valued. You're valued, you only matter when they need something. That's a feeling I get. Good example, COVID. We needed our nurses. We prayed our nurses. We praised our police, our firefighters. A year later, we were vilifying police. We were saying nasty things about nurses for not wanting to be vaccinated. I mean, it can't be both ways. You either matter or you don't. I mean, you know, don't say 1 minute you matter, the next minute go away. It just, it's mental abuse.
And among the service workers, blue collar workforce at Smith, was it mainly white people or was it black and brown people as well?
No, it was very, very, yeah, it was very, not what the correct word is, but yeah, we had people of all races, colors. Yeah, it was a very diverse group.
Yeah.
So do I think it was the white privilege involved in there? No. We were all, it was a very diverse group.
Would you say that you were all kind of experiencing the same challenges as blue collar workers, regardless of your race?
The people I talked to, yeah. The people I would see every day, certainly. You know, and there was one good point about, because of my anxiety, I couldn't even go to Northampton. It's a town I grew up in and lived in for 50 years. And one thing my wife said that really struck me, today it's you're being falsely accused of racism. What about next week when you're falsely accused of something else, sexual abuse or, you know, stealing or what have you? You have no recourse, none. And for a blue collar worker, and I'm finding out now that it's just not Smith College, it's all over.
Yeah. What are the other things that you're hearing from across the country?
Related to this?
Yeah.
That's a tough question. Just so everybody knows, I am a living conservative. I don't talk politics. I know that's not your premise here, but normally I don't talk politics. I don't get my politics involved in anything. It's just what I believe and what I live by. Yeah, so that being said, what's going on across the country is just crazy.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Let me ask you when, so in 2016, President Trump is running for office, and then there was that very famous moment, obviously, when Hillary Clinton referred to some Trump supporters as deplorables. What was your reaction when you heard that?
Disgusting. Disgusting. And on the other hand, Trump saying that some other groups of people are horrible too. You know, they're all standing there. They're supposed to be for us. They're not.
Hmm.
We're being drilled about diversity, equality, and all that, but our own political leaders don't live by it. They don't deal with it.
And you see this on both sides. You
Oh yeah.
didn't like it when you heard it from Trump, and you didn't like it when you heard it from
No, I voted for
Clinton.
Trump. And I didn't like when he tweeted the things he tweeted. It's unnecessary. My father was in politics, being local politics. Okay, it's on a little lower level. But back then, that was the late 60s, early 70s. They had respect for each other. And they would never say the things that are being said in politics now. And it's so disgusting to me that it has to be like that.
Hmm.
And it's like that in the workplace.
Hmm.
Why do the person that actually got confronted with the student got put on paid leave immediately before there was any type of questioning, any type of investigation, just immediately put on paid leave. And to me, in America, you're innocent till proven guilty.
Hmm.
Why? Why did they do it?
And just there was a question to me in the chat about clarifying. Maybe you could clarify for those who may have missed it. This was a case of mistaken identity, right? That you were not even there.
I was not even there. I left at 1 o'clock, and this incident was closer to 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So the student, it was just a case of mistaken identity and identifying you as the janitor who was involved.
But she just went on our directory, looked at the pictures, and picked me out as the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And posted it. Posted it on Facebook.
Yeah. We're going to open it up to questions and comments very soon, but a couple last questions for you here. And again, for the questions and comments, let me tee this up. Questions are, any questions of understanding or in curiosity, any questions of understanding. Any comments, particularly if, because we're talking about blue collar workers and working class people, and their role in our country, in our society. If you identify as working class or yourself a blue collar worker and you have experience about this, whether for good or bad, feel free to raise your hand and make a comment. So comment by people with direct experience, whether you're blue collar or working class, and otherwise we'll take questions. But a couple last questions for you here from me. So curious, what was your experience like with the New York Times reporter? He contacted you and you talked to him. Was that a positive experience? What was that like?
It was. He was very genuine. He clearly was for the blue collar worker. He wanted to know our story about what happened there. And he, as so much, put it in the paper that way. There was anything I said to him was not misquoted, wasn't changed, wasn't, everything was as he said it would be.
Mhm, mhm. Did
Um,
that surprise you? Were you skeptical when he initially reached out to you?
In a way, I was a little afraid to speak because I was told not to speak by lawyers.
Mhm,
Um, so I was nervous to begin with, going against the rules with the lawyer. But no, it was very good. He was very, put me at ease. It was just on the phone. It was a phone call. Yeah, it worked out well.
mhm, mhm. And, um, so I guess last question for you here. What, thinking about your overall experience of what happened, which is not a, not at all a pleasant experience for you. And I mean, you were, you've experienced a wrong here. And so, but what do you think that our country could learn? What do you hope that our country might learn from your experience and the experiences of blue collar workers like yourself? Or another way of saying it, what are some changes that you'd like to see with respect to blue collar workers in our role in society?
Very simple. If there's a wrong, make it right. If you personally, politician, whoever, are wrong, admit it and move on. That's the first thing. The second thing is we got to stop beating up on each other. We really do. I'm American through and through, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We're on a path of destruction, and I hate seeing it.
Mm, mhm. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for
Mhm.
sharing us with you. I know that's you're being vulnerable here and sharing yourself and your story. So thank you. So we want to open it up to discussion. We want to expand this conversation again. Uh, if you have a question for Mark, anyone's welcome to ask a question. And again, if you identify as working class or work in a blue collar occupation and you have something you'd like to add to the conversation and experience, please raise your hand and let us know that. We'd love to hear from you. One thing about in our Brave Angels Red Blue workshop, the designer of the Brave Angels workshop, Bill Doherty, he came up with some elements of a good question. And so I'll just share these with you and hopefully you can take it for what it's worth as we ask questions. So 4 things about what we like to think of as good questions, 4 elements of good questions of clarification and understanding. 1, it's not a gotcha question. We're not trying to trap the person. A second, we want to learn something about someone else, something we're curious about, versus wanting the other person to learn from my question. Third, it's a question that the person can actually answer. And fourth, it's a straightforward question and doesn't carry an assumption that they might dispute. So, so those are 4 elements of good questions of understanding I'll submit to you. Okay, I see Ted Borick. You have your hand up. Go ahead, Ted. Do you have a question or a comment, Ted? But go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question, and this was partly covered toward your later explanation, but I think what you said that was most important to you, that if there's a wrong, you'd like to have that corrected. And I'm having a little difficulty not understanding exactly what the wrong was here. And I didn't read the New York Times article, but I don't know whether there was something wrong in what the woman said to that the prior whoever it was, mechanic or whatever it was, the prior employee said. I have no idea what that statement was. Was it that situation, or was it that there was not a procedure for you to be heard by your administration? The idea that you were not even there and you were taking the blame for something is very troublesome. But I don't know what you see as the wrong, and that's my question.
Very good. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ted.
Well, I think there were several wrongs. first of all, her wrong was not finding out,
Who's her?
finding out who
Sorry,
I was.
Who's her? Is it the
student.
administrator or is it?
No, this was the student that was accusing another employee of racism. Picked my picture out of a lineup without knowing me, knowing who I actually was. Never, just by looking at that picture, that's all it took for her to make a conclusion that I was the racist. I was the one. And she took advantage of that and threw it on Facebook without knowing the truth. When only when the college made her did she put a short apology on her Facebook, but there was nothing sent to me. There was nothing said to my family. There was nothing publicly out there saying that it wasn't me.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Let's go to Brian Anderson. Brian, do you have a question or a comment?
I have a question, a couple of quick ones if we have time. When this student published your photo, and I think you said maybe email address or some personal information, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Were you worried about physical violence against you or your family or your home?
Well, I wasn't worried necessarily about physical violence. I was worried for my family because at the time my wife and I were going through a situation with our granddaughter who was 2 at the time. No, she was 4 at the time. And we had lawyers and we're fighting for custody of her. And just this coming out could have, it didn't, but it could have had very, very bad, could have had a very bad outcome with that case. So again, what the student did without finding the truth, really, and to this day, I don't know if she understands what simple words can do. When I say correct the wrong, you can't go running around just saying this to people and go on, it's just not right. It's wrong. It could have destroyed a little girl's life. It didn't, thank God. But it could have.
Yeah.
Brian, if that's okay, I just out of respect for all the people who have their hands raised, I want to move ahead to the next question. I know you've got more that you want to ask, but I'd like to move on.
I understand.
But I do want to see, of all the people who have their hands raised, is there anyone who is a blue collar worker or identifies as working class, and you have something you'd like to contribute to the conversation and experience or observation based on your experience? Yes, Rebecca, go ahead.
Well, I wanted, I don't know if I would consider myself blue collar, but I worked at a minimum wage job, and I was fired from my job because I wrote something in the newspaper, I live in Vermont, by the way, and I wrote a very academic criticism of critical race theory. And I guess a customer at the store that I worked at told my boss that she didn't feel safe with me in the store. And for that and for unknown other reasons, I was fired. The only thing they said, they didn't need a reason to fire me because I was an at-will employee, but got my friend to ask what happened, and they said, oh, it was for inclusion, for the sake of inclusion. And I just wanted to say to Mark how he felt about like not even wanting to go into Northampton. I felt the same way about going onto the street that the store that I worked at. I haven't even been back to that street, and it's been, I was fired in July, and I just like, I didn't do anything wrong. But it's as if I did something wrong. And it's like a humiliation. And I don't even want to go there. And it's like, and I'm afraid to talk to people even about what happened to me, because sometimes when I did say it to people, they would start yelling at me, telling me that I'm racist because I don't like critical race theory. So anyway, I just related to that part of your story, Mark. And I had a question, which was, you said that after the student's Facebook post, and even though you weren't there, you said that nothing got better at the college. And like, what can you describe more? Like, were you getting hostility from the college or from people at the college? Was it pressure? Was it just a lack of support? Was it that they just weren't sticking up for you? I mean, they should have stuck up for you publicly right from the start. And so I'm just wondering what you meant when you said just that nothing got better after that.
Yeah, the only support I got from the college was in the form of a phone call here or there, and it was, we're sorry for what happened to you. Please don't talk to the media, pretty much. I too was afraid to go back into town. And even now, 3 years later, I go back into town because my bank's down there, and other things. I just want to go and get out. And it's a town I grew up in. I don't understand why I feel like that. I've tried going through it with a therapist. But that's just the way it is. And I haven't even been near the college since this all took place. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. And I knew that I just knew by the phone calls I was getting from the college that there was going to be no support for me. None. And I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it. And a lot of it was my family. I was more worried about my family.
Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for your question. Liz, I want to go to you. Do you have a question or a comment? Liz Wagner.
Sorry, I was having trouble getting unmuted. I had a question. First, thank you, Mark, for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I know that takes a lot. And I was curious, since you said things started going bad as far back as 2008, around then, I wondered two things. One, if you thought that was connected in some way with the crash of the economy. And two, at that time when things started going bad, whether it was connected to the economy or not, were some of the things that you felt were starting to go bad have racial overtones? Is that when you started seeing things having to do with race and diversity becoming a
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, well, with the college, there was always that issue with economy and, oh my God, their $2 billion endowment just went down by 100,000. So that's always an issue. As far as the race, that started becoming, I don't want to say, that started becoming more prevalent. Everything they would do was centered around that.
At that same time,
if
as
that
far
makes any
back as
sense.
2008?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, may have been further than that too.
Really?
That's when I really started
okay.
noticing. It's just that the emphasis was on race more than I ever saw there before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Liz. Jerry Silverman, do you have a question or a comment? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jerry.
Yeah.
And there you go.
So I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure. Did Smith College ever take any disciplinary action against you?
Against me, no,
Okay. And
no.
did you ever ask the union to get involved in trying to get justice for you? I know you said you weren't very involved in the union,
Yeah,
but you said it was.
Yeah. I did, and I spoke with the union lawyer and was told the same thing. Smith won't budge. There's nothing I can do for you.
Okay, thank you.
Those were his words.
I want to see if anyone else out there with your hands raised, anyone among you, you a blue collar worker, identify as working class, and you have a comment or an experience that you'd like to share. Just raise your physical hand and see if that's you. Yes, Lori Decker. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Lori. And then Matt, I'll go to you next, Matt Griscom. Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
I sort of considered myself both. I've had a really varied life. I've worked in an academic situation. I've worked in healthcare, but also I worked near the end of my career as a beekeeper in a commercial setting, and so I've kind of been on both sides of this. And what I've noticed is, and I'm sort of a student of human behavior. It just interests me. And what I've noticed is that it doesn't matter if we're blue collar or white collar, we're still gonna be a little suspect of the other side of the fence. And I think we're hardwired for that as human beings. I think I think it originally was more having to do with color or tribes or things like that. And I think that as time progresses and we've become more specialized, we've become more aware of class differences, partly because we're protecting our own and we're proud of ourselves. The only solution I have that, I can only speak for myself, is to just be aware of it. And to just be conscious of that and try to rein myself in. When I was working in an academic setting, I had enough experiences with the school janitors that I came to realize that probably the smartest, most talented people in the school were the janitors, because they could fix anything. I mean, they just sort of could figure out how to make the school work. And, usually the principals were kind of floundering around. So I don't know. So I kind of got over it for myself, but I really see it. And that's it.
Thank you, Lori.
If
Appreciate
I
you weighing
can,
in.
if I
Go
can
ahead, Mark.
comment, if I can comment to that.
Yeah, go for it.
She's right on everything. Especially the part where the word janitor, we do much more than that. And there were so many of us that were probably more educated than a lot of the professors on campus. But because of what they did, for work, they were, just treated differently.
Mark, I'm going to ask you an off-the-wall question right now, and then I'm going to go to Matt. Do you think would you like to see more janitors running for public office?
I'd like to see it. I don't know if the world does.
The janitor
Um,
party.
It would be nice. It would be nice if blue collar people would start running, but unfortunately they don't have the funds. The funds. It all comes down to money, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot who would.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Matt Griscom, you had a comment.
Oh, thank you. Yes, first I want to say, Mark, thank you very much for telling your story and for the job that you did. You are worthy of respect, and I'm very grateful you have the courage to participate in this forum.
Well,
Thank you. And I think you were the victim of a racist attack, and I know a lot of people don't see it this way, but in the big picture, that's what it was by Miss Canute. I'm very sorry this happened to you. Did she ever receive disciplinary action from the Smith administration?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing I'm aware of. There was a lot of, because of this incident, there was a lot of training implemented, training she wanted to see happen. And it, from what I understand, it did happen. Inclusion training, equity training.
Yes, it's racist training actually, but everybody is deserving of respect, and so I'm going to post more comments to the chat because it's outside the scope. Thank you again for participating.
Thank you.
Margaret Borden, you have a question or a comment?
I have a question. The context is probably class-based. It's based on some assumptions I have that I need to state. I assume that if a top official of the organization were misidentified, that the administration would come out pretty fast to the public and say, this was a mistake. And I heard that not only that did not happen to Mark, but that they didn't want him telling anybody it happened. And the second is, I can't, so I'd like his comments, thoughts on that. And the second is, I can't believe a college, university of Smith stature doesn't have things like in-house mediation, restorative justice processes. And I just can't believe they don't exist. And I wondered if Mark was aware whether they exist. Were they offered to him? Was anything? I'm hearing him say nothing was offered to him, but I'm just asking around that type of process. Was he aware of any? Was his lawyer aware of any? Was anybody? What were those types of things available? And if so, are they just not being offered to blue collar workers as opposed to staff or professors?
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Well, first off, yes, if that was the president of the college, there would have been apologies all over the world. As far as mediation and the sort, to my understanding, it was never offered to me. I believe it was offered to Ms. Canute through, she could, it was offered to her and the actual employee that confronted her, who was on leave. But I don't believe that ever happened. I think she refused it.
All right. Thank you for the question, Margaret. Let me go to John O'Brien. John, you're up. You can unmute yourself. Do you have a question or a comment, John?
Hi. Thank you for speaking tonight. I wanted to know how your colleagues, other janitors or security guards, dealt with the controversy, and if the controversy is still ongoing, or a race controversy of a similar nature?
Yeah, since I left, I have not really spoken to anybody. I don't know how. I know they're not handling it well. They're not happy about it. And there has been another incident. Because of my incident, and they started implementing all this training, another employee had an issue with all the training being racist against the employees and spoke out, and is now has left the college and in a suit with the college over that.
All right, thank you for your question, John. Let's go to Kay. Kay for Lonnie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for being here this evening and for sharing your story. As I was listening to what you were sharing with us, one of the things that I was struck with was that it sounds to me, and this is sort of broader than just what happened to you, that that institutions are sometimes caring more about the survival of the institution than the people who are part of the institution. And in this case, you were part of that institution as a part of their staff, And I just wondered if you would say something about that, because I think, to me, that concept of what I see, and I think I see it more broadly happening in our society, where often institutions take actions that protect the institution itself, and people fall on the wayside, in that process. And I wondered if you could say something, to that.
Oh, you're 100% correct. They were throughout the whole thing. They're correct. They're protecting themselves. They don't like media coverage, bad media coverage, I should say. They never have. After this incident happened, they hired a law firm out of Boston to come in and investigate it. They just wanted it to go away. They wanted to show people they were doing everything they could to make it go away. Because they didn't want their name put out in the world that this racist thing happened at Smith College, and the college, it's a reputation thing. They didn't want to lose their reputation.
All right, thank you for your question, Kay. Let's go to Jenny Maxwell.
Thank you all so much for hosting this, and thank you, Mark, for being brave and sharing your story. I wanted to bring up I'm going to comment more than question, and I'll try to be brief because I know there's other hands. But one of the things that really jumps out at me is this student, regardless of her ethnic or racial background, was occupying a place of the college that was closed to her at that time. And the blue collar workers, or really anyone of authority, was trying to enforce the fact that she was in a place that the rules of the college that I would imagine she had agreed to in the handbook when she signed up to go to college, that she was in violation of those things. And in her disagreement with the rules, this happens to be a minor infraction where she was sitting eating in a place where she wasn't graffitiing, she wasn't doing something crazy. She was just eating in a place where she wasn't. But in being confronted that she was violating the rules, her response was to, in my opinion, and in summary, tantrum on social media against employees trying to enforce the rules. And not only was that not reprimanded behavior, but it was also it doesn't seem to me that there was any peer pressure that
And Jenny, if you could wrap it up in about 10 seconds.
Sure. So my question kind of that I'm thinking through is, how do we start building culture that reinforces norms that creates functional rule-abiding society that we can actually civilly operate in?
Mhm.
So
Okay,
that's
thank you
that.
for your question, Jenny. And let me also say that, you know, if we had a We the People's Forum with Miss Canute, which we'd be very happy to do, I'm sure that she has her own story. And so, you know, there's I'm sure a deep and rich story there that we couldn't hear from her tonight. So yes, but what about that question, Mark?
She's right. She's right. It was a temper tantrum. She was being told she wasn't supposed to be in an area that she wanted to be in. And she threw a fit, and it just all blew up for no reason whatsoever. It should have been stopped right then and there, but it wasn't. And the funny part about that is she had her phone on video ready to go when the officer came in with the janitor to confront her. So this was all, to me, that was all a little fishy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left before we wrap it up here. So we might not get to all the hands, but we'll hear from a couple more people. Kathleen, you're up. You could unmute yourself. And do you have a question or do you have a comment, Kathleen? Let's see, Kathleen, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to go to Kelly while you're unmuted. Kelly Cobour, you're up. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, hi. I have a question actually. I'm approaching this as a Smith alumna myself, okay? And I've been involved with Jody and her cause, and so I'm coming to you from this, and I'm very grateful for Mark's time. Mark, I have a question for you. Here it is. Is there anything that we as alumni can do to support you? And also, what would you have liked to see, or what would you like to see from a responsible college administration? These are, very specific things, because
Yeah.
I would love to be able to, put metal to the road,
Right. A lot of alums have been very supportive, which
Great.
is been happy. I've been happy to see that. I don't have an answer for the second one, but I can tell you, because of all this, I was looking at another 10 years at Smith. And between income, retirement, sick time, vacation time, what have you, you want to get down to the nitty gritty, I've probably lost a couple $100,000. And now I'm trying to live on a Social Security check that is nowhere near what I hope to retire with. I don't know if that tells you anything, but I honestly, at this point, I really don't want to hear from Smith. I'll be honest. I really don't.
It's made me embarrassed to be an alumna.
And I well, you worked hard. You shouldn't be embarrassed. But that's the part that's hurting me. And now that I've been on disability, my body's gotten worse and I can't work, even if I wanted to. And now I have a wife who's working 100 hours a week, which she loves because she's a workaholic, but That's beside the point. She shouldn't have to. And it made, the whole incident made life very difficult, and it wasn't in our plans. I know, you know, things change quickly every day. Things change quickly for the people in the tornadoes. But yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you. We're gonna go to one more person here, James Joshua Pennington. Do you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment. It's a question. I'm trying to obey your 4 maxims of asking a good question and not put too much commentary in my question, but I have to put just a little bit. So I was just gonna say, Mark, thank you very much for sharing your story. I followed it.
Thank you.
From way back when I watched Tucker Carlson all the time, and him and Hannity coverage are pretty good. Unfortunately,
Thank you.
You know, the elephant in the room here is Jesse Smollett, right? No one's mentioned his name, but obviously this idea that you can, as a colored individual, you can let's say claim some sort of hate crime, or you know, that you have some sort of like, there's more like believability in your story as opposed to your story saying that you were falsely accused, right? Like, it's more like the media has this powerful hand in like shaping our narratives. I was wondering how much accountability have you seen from the media, especially the New York Times, who has, you know, put out this, almost, it was like a hit job on you essentially. But then how much support have you seen from the folks like Tucker Carlson and stuff? And then I was reading a Rolling Stone article that from 2021 that mentioned Smith College and Jody Shaw and the other incident with a security officer, but they don't mention you at all in your story. So I'm wondering, like, what's going on with all this like inconsistency with the media? Like, how much influence do they have in all this stuff getting out of hand?
Oh, I think the media is a big influence. But I have to say, Jody has been a rock for me. When I heard what happened to her, I reached out to her, and she's led me all the way. She's been very good. And because of her, the Woodson Center, I don't know if anybody knows in DC, Bob Woodson, they were very supportive of the plight, mine and Jody's. And they were very supportive and helpful. Other than that, you know, I know there was the Tucker Carlson thing and what have you, but yeah, I wasn't. Have I personally heard from them? No. No. I've had the opportunity given to me to speak to them, but again, I was under lawyer gag order not to, so.
All right, so that wraps up the discussion period. We're gonna have a chance for you, for people to say very briefly what they're taking away from this conversation tonight in just a minute. Let me say one thing, and I'm gonna ask Wilk to say something about Braver Angels. One thing that's striking to me about this conversation is that it's very possible that this incident is an example of how race can divide us as Americans. But I also heard it could be, and it could go in the other direction, because Mark was talking about blue collar workers, regardless of race, having at least some similar experiences in terms of being on the end of classism. And it seems like there's some solidarity, multiracial solidarity there to be had. And so I was struck by that in one sense, this could be very polarizing. It could be a very racially polarizing conversation, but it could also be, it could also be an interesting thing to think about. What are the opportunities here for blue collar people, regardless of race, to speak up about addressing classism? So that's one of my own takeaways from this conversation. I want to invite Wilk to say something about Braver Angels and Braver Angels membership. No, Wilk, go for it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Thank you very much for giving me a little bit of time here to speak, and thank you, Mark, for your story tonight.
Sure.
I just want to remind everybody that as human beings in part of the greatest country on God's green earth, we have much more in common with each other than anything that separates us. And I don't care if you're in a different class, or if you're of different race, or if you're from a different continent. If you're here, you're part of the most privileged people on the planet, guaranteed. And what we have to do is, just because we have different ideas, we have to remember that different ideas don't make us monsters. And when we make people into monsters, we stop listening to what they say. So as Mark's story brings to the forefront for so many people that are listening to this tonight, the rape of a name may not be physical, but there are real life consequences to that, because somebody made him into a monster when they didn't even know who he was. So Braver Angels does more to help better the discourse among people of different ideas than anything out there. So becoming a member of Braver Angels, and all you have to do is go to braverangels.org/join, go to their website, tell all your friends about it. You can become part of a movement that is helping to make sure we don't treat each other like monsters, that gives you an opportunity to be heard where at times you would not ever get to be heard. Just remember, social media and the mainstream media and big tech has proven time and time and time again that those that know the least say it the loudest and get the most airplay. Here, at least you get a chance to speak your voice.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Will. And Apple, I'm going to invite you to put in the chat the feedback form for this evening. If you have any comments, or please, regardless of your experience, invite you to just take a couple minutes to fill out the feedback form. It helps us to let us know how we can continue to improve what we're doing here. And also, if you have ideas for other topics and other guests that we might address here on We the People's Forum. The idea is it's everyday Americans talking about the issues of the day.
David, before we go, can I quickly?
Yes, please, go for it.
I have to use this forum to thank the Woodson Center, Jody Shaw, my wife, first of all. And I want to thank every single one of the people who donated on GoFundMe for me and my family. It has been awesome. Thank you very much. It's nice to know there's good people out there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here. We're going to get that feedback form link there. Apple, do you have that feedback form link? I can get it in there if not. But let's start the checkouts. The question is, what are you taking away with you from this conversation tonight? So just in one sentence, what are you taking with you from this conversation tonight? And I want to go to Rita. You're up.
Thank you, David. I do have something I'm want to ask a question rather than make a comment at this point in time, only for the sake of those that are here. I cannot see everyone on the screen because we have a wonderful attendance tonight. I'm just really thrilled that there's so many people here with us. I do want to ask that if there are any people of color that are on with us tonight and they haven't had a chance to address anything, that I would really encourage them to raise their hand. We'd love to hear from you. So I just want to put that out there because, as I said, we get in the midst of this and it's difficult to see everyone on the screen, and we can't see everyone. Some people aren't using their video. So if there are any people of color that would like to make comment, please let us know. We would be glad to, hear from you. And I just want to thank everyone. And Mark, this was just so wonderful hearing from you. And thanks for everyone that, that added to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So again, what are you taking away with you from this conversation tonight? And let's go to Yi. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Yi. Oh, sorry, you're still on mute. You're still muted, Yi.
Okay, sorry. So I'm a Chinese immigrant. I'm so grateful this session is organized, and thanks, Mark, you sharing your experience. And I feel very bad about what happened to you, because for me, by American classification system, I'm a person of color. And I see all those accusations of going on of white people, you by nature racist. And I see a lot of my fellow Chinese immigrants are doing such things as well. And make me very afraid, because I don't like people to think people like me think they make me actually dangerous, because people can look at me and say, oh, she probably believe I'm an oppressor. She probably believe me I'm a racist. That doesn't help me to make friends. It just divide us. And this burden, I know this is my husband, he's a white person. So we are a mixed heritage family. And I feel we see that terrible, brutal harm on white people. On the other end, this divisiveness just make everybody, the people of color community, we can be considered like we are vindictive, we are just unforgivable, we are terrible person. I want to do something to end it, because I want people to see each other as human beings, and we don't want to do hard things on people. And so I'm a member of FAIR, Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, and also join those events on BA. And just thank you for having this event. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Yi. Let's go to others. What are you taking away with you from this conversation tonight? Just in one sentence or so. Anyone? Any takeaways from tonight?
Hi, I'm Louise.
Yes, go for it, Louise.
Well, I have a concern about it. I enjoyed hearing it. It's the first such conversation I've heard from Braver Angels. And I appreciated Mark very much and his emphasis on classism. But I'm very concerned at the undertones I'm hearing that any anti-racist training is itself racist. I believe most of us need anti-racist training. So I would not want to say that we are just all perfect as we are, and that we, just because someone called us racist doesn't mean we aren't racist.
All right, thank you, Louise. That's what you're taking away from this. Let's go to Jenny and then Roy. What are you taking away from this conversation tonight in one sentence?
I'm taking away gratitude, bravery, and better listening.
Thank you. Roy.
Yeah, I appreciate Louise's comment, and I think for me there's just a lot of mistakes made here. I mean, and I think Mark got bad advice as well. I mean, I think there was definite slander and libel against you that hurt your reputation, and that's a legal thing that there was a lawsuit there that didn't happen, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm worried that we get dragged into race conversations when it's really about human interactions and mistakes that don't have a lot of race inherently in them necessarily.
Thank you, Roy. And then for our last word, Mark, I'm going to go to you. What are you taking away from our conversation tonight?
Well, I'm very happy I got through it. But it has been nice to see differences, and everybody's just getting along and having a conversation. It is a breath of fresh air.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to the next time. Let's go out there and build a house united, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. This was a wonderful conversation. We hope you'll join us again.